Good morning, and welcome to the Aliyah Day, our special edition of the Aliyah Day on the Festival of Sukkot. It is a joy to be with you. I am glad you are here, and I hope that everybody is having a very, very, very Chag Sameach. And I know that we are. It's wonderful. The weather has transitioned a little bit here in North Texas, so it is cool and crisp and beautiful this morning. And so life is good. And so we're continuing to enjoy the holiday. It is Chol HaMoed. This is the intermediate day of Sukkot. And I'm glad to be with you. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, click the like button, share this video with all your friends so that they can learn about Sukkot and all of these deep insights. Not just this video, of course, but we have the first two Aliyah days that we've done for this special Sukkot series. And we again are glad that you're here. We're learning wonderful insights from sources such as the Talmud, the Midrash, Sfes Emes, and others about this particular holiday and its meaning, which I pray is bringing more joy and more understanding and more meaning to you as we celebrate this wonderful festival time together. We have lots to share today, so many insights to bring forth today. So we're just going to jump right into it and see where Hashem would take us. Let's begin. As I said yesterday, there was at least one precious soul out there, one holy spark, that wanted to know about the offerings and why we had diminishing offerings during this holiday. And so there is an insight here. First and foremost, let me see if I can find this. I have so many pages marked, things that I wanted to share. Let me see if I can find this right quick without causing too much of a delay. And the insight has to do with the fact that if the nations had known, I'm not really finding it right offhand. I'm sure I'll come across it soon enough. But had the nations known what benefit that they had received from the temple and the offerings that were offered in the temple, rather than destroy it, they would have protected it. You know, the same thing could be said today for the Torah in general. Welcome, by the way, Alberta. I just happened to look down. Alberta from Guatemala. Bienvenidos, Alberta from Guatemala. Glad you're here. That's exciting, isn't it? We always have people tune in from across the world. That is wonderful. But anyway, as I was saying, the nations, if they understood the protection and the benefit that they received from the Torah, from the law of Moses, then they would stop trying to get rid of it. There was a wonderful insight I was looking at in Sfes Emes about the fact that on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, for instance, because Jewish people such as us celebrate these holidays and keep them with the proper halakha, not doing what so many do, which is making everything up on their own, everyone doing right in their own eyes. But we're actually following what Judaism has taught for centuries. Because we do that, we bring about a renewal of the universe, and we bring about a level of forgiveness, not just for ourselves, but really all of mankind. It's like the remnant is asking for tshuva, and as a result, God grants a reprieve, as it were, for humankind. It's really an important concept. But anyway, if the nations rather had known the benefit that they had received from the temple, they would have surrounded it and guarded it and protected it and not allowed it to become desecrated. So there's an insight here. This comes from an art school commentary on Sukkot. It says, in this quest for peace, Israel does not limit itself to its own national interest. The Musaf offerings of Sukkot include 70 bulls. Why 70? Because there are 70 nations. There are 70 root nations. So the Musaf offering for Sukkot includes 70 bulls that are sacrificed to bring heavenly blessing upon the 70 nations. So the reason we have these 70 bulls, the reason that they're offered is in order to bring about the blessings upon all the nations of the world. Again, Judaism is not concerned about its own self, which is the whole point of Jews and Judaism, that God chose us, as I've taught before. Jews are chosen in order to be God's ministers in the world, to bring other people into the covenant. That is our mission, to bring about, to proselytize, to bring about the nations under the wings of the Shekinah. So it says the Musaf offerings of Sukkot include 70 bulls that are sacrificed to bring heavenly blessing upon the 70 nations. The Jewish mission to the nations was expressed in our earliest history in the name of the patriarch Abraham, whose name is scripturally described as an acronym, Av Hamon Goyim, father of the multitude of nations, from Genesis 17:5. So it says here, the chosenness of Israel lies in its sole responsibility to carry out all the commandments of Torah. Yes. Why? Because Torah is a light, and our responsibility is to shine the light. So what does the light do? It attracts the people of the nations. Why it says in Isaiah chapter 60 that the nations and the kings will be drawn to the brightness of our rising. So our purpose in keeping Torah is to draw other people to our Torah keeping. So it says, and by the way, that's having the effect, is it not? I mean, look at right now, you have a lot of people, not everybody, many people are kind of don't know what they don't know, right? But there's many non-Jews today, many Gentiles who are keeping Torah, at least trying to. They don't have the sources, they don't have all of the insights, and so they're doing the best they can, and no one is teaching them, so part of their not knowing is really not their fault. But there's people trying to keep the Torah, and the reason they even know about the Torah is because of the sages, because of the rabbis, because of Jews. That's why they even know about it. In fact, that's why humanity even knows about the Messiah to begin with. The Messiah is an entirely, the concept of Messiah in general, the concept, very important for you to understand this. The concept of the Messiah in general, the concept of resurrection, these concepts are entirely Pharisaical. If it wasn't for the Pharisees and the rabbis, there'd be no discussion of Mashiach. But I digress. So it says here, thereby it is also to serve as an example of godly service and be a leader to the other nations. So Israel's mission is not to be insulary. Israel's mission is not to shun, as it were, the goyim, or to try to not be involved in it. Actually, Israel's mission is to lead the goyim, and Sukkot is really the holiday that perhaps expresses that reality most clearly. So the thought continues, when they submit to Israel's leadership, they too will experience the blessings prophesied for Messianic times. So it goes on to say, this explains why the 70 offerings of Sukkot are divided as follows. 13 are brought on the first day, 12 on the second day, 11 on the third day, and so on until the last of the 7 days of Sukkot, when only 7 are brought. It says, this alludes to the diminishing status of the nations as history winds down to the end of days in the Messianic era. So starting out, the nations have a lot of clout, a lot of power, a lot of influence. But as history unfolds, the nations become less and less significant, and Israel becomes more and more prominent. Ultimately, all the nations are going to be Jewish. That's really what it amounts to. Every tribe and every tongue, every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that Hashem is God of the earth. And when that happens, everybody will be a Jew, Israelite, Hebrew. It's all synonymous terms. So it says, it is a mistake to regard this as a degradation of the nations, however. Okay, so it doesn't mean that it's not to denigrate people or to talk down on people. It's just the reality of God's ultimate will. God ultimately wants to bring everybody in the covenant. So it says the 70 offerings of Sukkot display Jewish concern for all humanity. The Jewish nation title Yeshurun, from the word yashar, upright or just, means those who make others upright. So one of our nicknames as Jews that God gave us is Yeshurun, which, as I just read, comes from the root yashar, which means upright or just. So therefore, our mission, one of our missions, is to make others upright. How do we do that? How do we make others upright? We lead them into Torah observance. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And through a series of circumstances, through a history of persecution and things of that nature, we're no longer doing that. Or at least we haven't been doing that. But we need to be doing that. That is really what we're called to do. So it says, it expresses the national mission to bring the message of justice to the world at large. Were it to refer only to Israel's own status as an upright nation, their word would have been Yesharim, upright ones. So the very nickname, if you will, itself indicates to us what we're called to do, and that is to bring others into right living, into right standing. I love this little sentence, by the way, just somewhat of an aside, but there was one sentence I highlighted in this in this commentary here, and it says, "The birth of a nation is meaningless without a sense of purpose." The birth of a nation is meaningless without a sense of purpose. You know, people who call them, or who would say that they are, quote, born again, which, by the way, is a Jewish term. But people say they're born again, they're born anew, they're new creatures. Isn't it remarkable that just a few years ago, there had to be a book written, title was very popular, of course, titled The Purpose-Driven Life. Why? Because people who were born again, a new nation, if you will, in God, seemingly had no purpose. There was no command beyond believe. Just believe, have faith, trust that when you die, you're going to go to heaven, and that's it. See you later. We'll see you when you die. And so there's no purpose. There's no vision. There's no direction. Live for God, but no instruction on how to do that. Be holy, but no real instruction on how to do that. Very vague and subjective things such as love your neighbor, or be a moral person, or whatever it is. There's no direction. Which this is why God gave the Torah to Israel, because he brought forth a nation that had been born anew and gave them a purpose and a mission. You will be most fulfilled in your life when you have a sense of purpose. People are happiest when they really know what they're doing and they have something that they're called to do, and they wake up every morning with a mission and a purpose. That's why it's so important to stay active in life. Very important. So a nation without a sense of purpose has no meaning. It's a meaningless nation. I just thought that was a very interesting insight. There's also another story I want to share since we're in this commentary. Excuse me as I take a drink. Toda. Just a really nice story here about Sukkot and the meaning of Sukkot. And so keeping Sukkot under difficult circumstances. So here's the story that I came across. It says, during the Russian-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905, it says many young disciples of Ger were conscripted into the Russian army and sent to the Japanese front. So they conscripted Jewish young men, sent them off to war. It says the underfed, underclothed, undertrained young Torah scholars maintain a brisk correspondence, including the Talmudic discussions, even near the front. They did so with their Rebbe, the Rabbi Yehuda Ari Leib Alter, known as Sfes Emes. Okay, so this is the Sfes Emes. And the Sfes Emes, he grieved and he allowed himself no rest as long as he knew that his disciples were in danger. So once it says they wrote to him how on the nights of Sukkot, those who were at the front lines dug a very deep foxhole and they covered it with branches so that it would be halakhically valid as a sukkah. Okay? So all through the night, they took turns taking their meals, whatever they had, into this foxhole sukkah that they built so that everybody could have a little something to eat and therefore fulfill the mitzvah of eating in a sukkah during Sukkot. Now, can you imagine that? A foxhole sukkah. That's kind of what we have, actually. We live in a world that's has a lot of issues, has a lot of immorality and craziness that goes on. And many times we feel like we're in a spiritual battle, which is why we need our sukkah. It's like a foxhole for us during the spiritual battle. But anyway, it says, the Sfes Emes wrote them back and said this, quote, of people like you, God says, Ha'idoti bachem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. I have adorned the, so Hamitically it's deriving Ha'idoti from the word adi, jewelry. I have adorned, as with jewelry, heaven and earth with you today. Deuteronomy 4:26. He said, you are the jewelry that beautifies heaven and earth. I want you to think about that for a moment, because we think very often about living in a sukkah and fulfilling the mitzvahs and blessing Hashem, but it's true that in so doing, we are becoming, as it were, the jewelry that adorns the earth. Many of you are living in a sukkah right now, and you could be the only one in your neighborhood that's living in a sukkah. As crazy as it sounds, one of our Lapidniks up in the Northeast, Boston area, actually put a post online that their neighbors called the police on their sukkah. I've never heard of that happening. But the police officers came out to investigate this strange edifice that was being constructed in the backyard. It's just crazy. It's insane. Probably somebody needs some help up there. But anyway, it's such a new phenomenon in that neighborhood that the cops got called. I mean, what you gonna do when they come for your sukkah? I mean, it's really, really crazy. But you may be the only one in your area that has a sukkah, and maybe the only one ever in your area that's had a sukkah. And as a result of that, that is like your spiritual foxhole in this spiritual battle that we're in. And as a result, you have just become a diamond, a pearl, a gem, a piece of jewelry to adorn the earth. I don't know about you, but that's exciting. And it's just amazing. So another concept here about the offerings. This comes from the book of our heritage. It says, come and see the difference between Israel and the nations. This is the difference between Israel and the nations. It says, when the nations rejoice, they think only of themselves. But when Israel rejoices, they are concerned with all mankind, seeking a means to bring bounty to everyone. So on the first day of the festival, when the day broke, they brought the daily sacrifices with its libations, wine and water, and all of mankind was blessed with the bounty of the entire year. When they had finished offering the daily sacrifices, they brought the additional sacrifices as an atonement. It says the additional sacrifices offered each day of the festival differed, as the Torah says, and you shall offer 13 oxen, and second day 12 oxen, the third day 11 oxen, from Bamidbar 29, 13, 17, and 20. Each day of the festival, one less ox was offered until the seventh day. 7 oxen were offered as an additional sacrifice. In total, 70 oxen were offered during the festival. The sages taught, in return for my love, they hate me, and I pray. We find that on the festival of Sukkot, Israel offered 70 oxen for the 70 nations. Israel said, Master of the universe, We offer 70 oxen on their behalf, and they should rightfully love us. And they, in return for my love, they hate me. Bamidbar Rabbah 21. So this teaches us a valuable lesson that as Jews, we are called upon to bless and to do our best to teach the truth and to deliver truth and to show love, even in the face of anti-Semitism, even in the face of hatred. And we have to be careful that we, because as Jews, very often we face discrimination, and it comes from all fronts. But we have to be very careful that we do not allow other people's hate to infect our souls. We have to be very cautious about this. Some other thoughts here. The Talmud Sota 5a declares that the divine presence cannot dwell in the same world as a haughty person, for Hashem epitomizes humility. We've talked about this a little bit before, but the sukkah is a very unstable structure. It's a temporary shelter. And last night, I know here we had a cold front come through, Baruch Hashem, because yesterday was rather humid, as they say in Jamaica. And so now it's nice and pleasant. But last night there was quite a gust of wind. We were enjoying dinner in somebody else's sukkah last night, and we ended up having to take the walls partly down because the sukkah was about to blow away. It was about to become a holy kite. And so it's a reminder, as we're sitting in such a humble dwelling, that God requires a humble soul. We have this physical body that we have is a sukkah, and we need to really make every effort in our daily lives moving forward that this sukkah remains a humble dwelling, because God cannot live with a haughty person. And we see this even in the writings of Kepha. Kepha talks about this, where God hates the arrogant and the haughty, but he lifts up those who are humble. This says here also in Sfes Emes that the sukkah is a refuge from a haughty world. We live in an arrogant, we live in a haughty world, and we have to go to a place of refuge, such as the sukkah, to get away from haughtiness. And this spirit of haughtiness is even more prevalent today, unfortunately, with the advent of social media, where everybody believes that their opinion is 100% supreme. And we live in a day and age where people don't want to be friends with people who have a different opinion than they do about a host of things. And we've become very arrogant and very haughty in our opinion, and we can't disagree without being hateful. We can't say, hey, I just don't agree with you right now. There's opinions that I had, my friends. This may come as a shock. There are opinions that I had 20 years ago, maybe 18 years ago, whatever, that I have the exact opposite opinion today. I would have argued with myself. I would have sent myself a nastygram. So listen, you've got to give people time and space. They may not agree with you now. Okay. So say, hey, we disagree. Baruch Hashem. I pray that someday we'll agree. And who knows? They may come back 20 years later if Mashiach tarries, which I hope he does. I hope he comes today. We're waiting for Yeshua today. But if he tarries, they may come back 20 years and go, I told you that. I understand. I see things differently now. All right, so we got to get into the sukkah to receive humility, but there is a weekly sukkah for us. I love this next insight. There is a weekly sukkah that in which we can gather. This is also an insight from Sfes Emes. It says this: for this reason, the sukkah finds a parallel in the otherworldly spirit of Shabbat, Amidst the drudgeries of the workday week, Shabbat offers a rarefied respite, a special period when the soul can emerge refreshed and suffused with the fragrance of the world to come. I love that sentence, the fragrance of the world to come. It says, it is significant that the expression, Bores Sukkah Shalom, Hashem spread his sukkah, his canopy of peace, is found in reference to Shabbat in the Friday night service and to the sukkah. So on both occasions, the Jew is sufficiently sheltered from the from the mundane daily life in an order to experience Olam Haba. So what it's saying here is that we have this expression, Borei Sukkat Shalom, Adonai spreads his sukkah, his canopy of peace. That expression is found both in the Erev Shabbat service and during Sukkot, meaning that there's a spiritual link between these two occasions. In other words, Shabbat is our weekly sukkah. Now, see, this is why God is so wonderful, because many of us, we all have our favorite holidays. I won't tell you what my favorite holiday is. You can probably guess. But we all have our favorite holidays, and all of the holidays are awesome, but we all have our favorite, and many people's favorite is Sukkot. And so we look forward all year long to dwelling in a sukkah. And yet, God is so amazing that he says, you know what? Every single week you can dwell in a spiritual sukkah. It's called Shabbat. One of the reasons we dwell in a sukkah, for instance, is because during this time of the year is our harvest time. It's where we have abundance and so on. And so by sitting in the sukkah, it is an opportunity for us to be in a humbled position where we recognize that everything we have ultimately comes from God. Same thing with Shabbat. Shabbat is the opportunity for us to turn everything off, as it were. Turn off our mundane work, turn off our striving, turn off our creating, turn off our trying to gain. Why? See, the world says, and the carnal mind says, nope, you got to keep working, keep working, keep working, keep working. You can't stop. You don't have time for rest. You've got to do the dishes, mow the grass, vacuum the carpet, go to work, go shopping. Can't miss that sale over here. Can't miss that whatever over there. Got to go to that event. Can't miss it. Because why? Because God is not your source. That's what this flesh is telling you. You've got to do it. You can't stop, because if you stop, then it won't continue to happen. Why? Because God is not in control. But when you force yourself to stop and get into the sukkah, what you're saying to the heavenlies, as it were, and you're saying to yourself is, you know what? Everything I have comes from God, so I can shut it down. I cannot go to that event that everybody says I have to go to or else, because God is in control. It's not me. I can click pause and say, I'll be back with you in 24 hours. And yep, the world will not end. You know what? I promise you the laundry can sit there for 24 hours and your house will not collapse. I promise you that you can put that email, that work email, on hold for 24 hours. Tell the person, I'll be back with you, and your business will not go under. I promise you it won't happen. Now, the enemy of your soul is going to make you think that's going to happen, but it's not going to happen. So we need every week to get into the sukkah of our daily week, which is the Shabbat. That is the beauty of God, that he gives us this. Incidentally, I turned the page and I found the insight that I was looking for earlier from Midrash Tanchuma, Pinka 16. This is where it says, the Midrash notes here in Midrash Tanchuma that the Gentiles realized the benefits of the temple that was being provided on their behalf, that they would have surrounded it with guards rather than try to destroy it and pull it down. All right, one more insight here as we conclude. I'm telling you, we have so much to offer, so don't miss out tomorrow. But here's another insight. This will kind of close us out today. It says this: the Sukkah is an opportunity to receive vision. So it says in Devarim 1:31, Uva midbar asher ra'itai, asher nesha'achea Adonai leheka. In the wilderness, you saw that Adonai carried you. So it says this expression was unique to them, but even today, a Jew can ascend to the level of revelation every year in his sukkah. After being examined under the searchlight of Yom Kippur, it says, and being vindicated by God's grace and his mercy, the Jew stands ready at sukkah to gain insight. Why? Because the very root word of sukkah itself is to see. When we sit in the sukkah, we're able to see things clearly for what they are. And that is that God is my shelter, my peace, and my protection. More tomorrow, end of our Aliyah today. Thank you so much for joining us. As we say, Chag Sameach. We come back tomorrow. We'll talk more about Chol HaMoed, the water drawing ceremony, and other wonderful insights. Until then, see you then. Please share this video. Please like it, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and we'll see everybody tomorrow with God's help. Chag Sameach.